So thanks, Aldrin. As we said, Black Friday has gained significant momentum in South Africa since the North American shopping event was piloted locally by Takealot in 2012, while last year's Black Friday saw a dip in spending despite more South African participation than the previous year. This year, the shopping event occurs after a private sector payday. New research by Pricewaterhouse Coopers forecasts a 36% increase in Black Friday spending in 2019. Ester Ochse is Esther, I was trying to remember. Ester Ochse is an economist and product head of money management at FNB, and she joins us in the studio. Thank you very much for joining us, and I needed a big Ochse to get into this. So tell me, perhaps let's start with the origins of Black Friday and how consumers acted prior to it. You know, obviously it's pretty newish in South Africa, but has it always been this big fanfare where people are literally putting their wallets down to say, now let's go get those big sales?
Yeah. So the history of Black Friday is actually an American tradition. If you think about it, it's the first Friday after Thanksgiving, and normally that's where there's massive sales out there, and that's also so that there's stock clearance in the States before their festive season spend. Always seen videos online of massive fights at Black Friday. That has now come to South African shores. As you say, it started in 2012 in South Africa, and it's generally started gaining a lot more momentum in South Africa. And you have seen that uptick in spending. And as you mentioned, a 36% year-on-year increase in spending. And even we're looking at potentially almost a 2,000% increase from one day to Black Friday in terms of spending. So a lot of people
and that's the thing. That's what I've seen. I think it says that Black Friday sales increased 2.571% last year, ranking the country top 5 globally. Is that a status that we should be proud of?
Not really. Not when you look at all the other factors that we've got. We've got a struggling population out there struggling to make ends meet. They're not saving enough for the long term. January is coming up, so there's a lot of things that they need to consider before they just go out and spend.
And as you mentioned that the sales are greater than on any other Friday shopping day.
Any other Friday, there's a massive spike, massive increase, but it's also the hype leading up. I mean, every time you look at a newspaper, or you read online, or you go to a radio ad, you hear all these Black Friday deals, Black Friday.
And you get unsolicited email, SMSs telling you about the build up to Black Friday.
Yes, absolutely. And it is creating this almost hysteria, I can put it to you, about Black Friday, and people thinking there's going to be massive bargains out there, which they need to be careful about.
And that's what therein lies the rub for me.
Yes.
Is it a saving? Is it a massive saving? Because if somebody says to you up to 70%, that doesn't necessarily mean 70%. But if you do get something off 70%, is that a massive saving? Does it qualify to be called that?
Well, let's first take a step back and look at what a saving is. So you get your needs and your wants. If you're getting a 70% saving on non-perishable groceries, toilet paper, washing powder, that type of thing, yes, that could potentially be a saving, because those are things that you're going to use for the next couple of years. If it's the new 65-inch TV, maybe it's not such a saving, because it's still money that's going out of your pocket, and you need to budget carefully for that.
I mean, we can see through the pictures that people are buying washing baskets. Those are everyday appliances that are in need, aren't they?
They are in need. So, you know, your sort of non-perishables, but as I said to you, school stationery for the kiddies for next year, if you can get good deals on that, school clothing for kiddies next year. But just be careful of that electronic spend, that unconscious spend that suddenly comes up. As I say, the big screen TVs, which you can see the coming up there, you need to be careful of that.
And I was going to ask you that, especially when it comes to electronics, people say that you know, we are in the digital era. So laptops, for instance, you can't, the people who would, I for one, used to think I could function without certain things, but when you think about it, you can't anymore. And if you're looking at your health, you want a Fitbit, etc. Yeah. So there's also investing in your health, investing in your career, investing in your professional well-being. Yes. Yeah. Is that...
So coming from the most digital, innovative bank in the country, I need to say that there's got to be some sort of electronic need. But again, You know, I always use the example that the sports score is not going to change on a 65-inch TV. The Booker will still win on a 32-inch TV.
It's not as fun.
It's not as fun,
yeah.
But you still get the same result. You don't need the latest and greatest. Make sure that you can afford that purchase that you're actually buying, that you don't give into that impulse purchase.
So I want to look at, obviously, Takealot brought it to South Africa in 2012. I am wondering, their pilot and what they've been doing and what others have followed suit on, is it the same as what is done internationally?
Very much so. So I can't really talk about Takealot, but let's just talk about the general retailers out there. Absolutely, it is something. And I mean, in America, you can get up to 80-90% discounts. So it is something that they do. We get Black Friday, then we get Cyber Monday that comes as well, where you get a lot of that electronic push that comes through, where you get the really good deals on electronics, on the laptops that we were talking about, the health equipment, you know, the Fitbits and all of those guys as well.
I'm going to use Takealot, obviously, as an example, because obviously a lot of research has been done based on what they've been doing. So as you mentioned, there's Cyber Monday, there's Takealot Tuesday, and Black Friday. The sales start this Friday, the 29th, and then there are deals that are also introduced throughout the weekend. Is that something that helps people pace themselves, as in that prevents them from just going in there and be a bull in a china shop? Does it help them really think about what it is that I need, the fact that you're given options?
So I think it could be quite a dangerous thing, but it could also be the right thing. One has to be careful at this time of the year, leading up to this sort of Black Friday frenzy, that you don't go into that FOMO spending, that fear of missing out spending, that you don't get caught up in this hype of just spending. Build up a game plan for yourself, write a list of what you want. Very importantly, actually give yourself an upper limit of what you're prepared to spend on Black Friday. And if the money's up, and that's it. Don't go and try and push it, and don't think, yes, there's another deal coming. Actually leverage off those deals properly for yourself.
Okay. The advantage of buying online, do you get greater savings? For instance, they have deals that are on the app only. Do you save more money when you buy online?
Again, it's very important when you come to those type of things, those online, that you do your research properly. So it could be that one online retailer has got a completely different price to another online retailer, and then also look at the other things that could maybe affect that as well. Things like delivery costs that come in as well. What are the returns policies? All of those things are things that you need to consider when you're doing online shopping. The advantage of online shopping is there's not that, how can I say, almost impulse spending of walking up and down in a mall or walking down around in a shopping centre.
And hearing certain items whisper your name.
Exactly. And they suddenly start jumping into the trolley on their own. Yes, no, I agree.
Okay, so let's talk about consumers. Can they actually afford Black Friday? Are people ladling themselves with debt, even though they've crunched the numbers and they've said, because it does come around this time, Christmas, sometimes people get bonuses, but we tend to really obscure that timeline between December and January, especially end of January.
Spotted. You know, the festive season that we're going into now is such a lovely time to spend time with the family, spend time with your friends. But done properly, you can actually leverage off Black Friday deals properly. So you can get the bargains that you can run into the festive season. But make sure that you don't get into a situation that your debit orders bounce, or that you move your debit orders. Make sure that you keep a little bit of money back for the January debit orders, that you've got enough money to live in January, so that you don't end up with that standard January that happens always.
So how do you ensure that Black Friday really does leave you in the black and not in the red?
Yeah, make Black Friday work for you is the important thing. Make a list of the people, as I mentioned earlier, make a list of the people that you want to buy presents for. It's a great time that if you can get a good special, use it. Then you can use it for your festive season presents. Make that list, stick to that list. And
can you only do it if you had saved for the day? It cannot be impulse buying. Is that what you basically said?
100%. And I'm a firm believer that in January, a person should actually already start making your plans for the festive season that's coming in 11 months' time. You shouldn't get into that impulse buying, and you should definitely be very cautious about that.
I am curious, though, what is the difference? So Black Friday, what we're sold really is that you get much higher savings in terms of the ratio of the sale price. But is it really? Because when I think of, and I don't know, perhaps I haven't partaken in a while as well, but they're the January sales that also give you more than 50 to 70%. So What then is the difference between Black Friday and those sales?
It's just the timing. And again, it's this tradition that comes in from the States in terms of the Black Friday. But that research is very important. So, make sure that the deal that you're getting is actually a 50% off deal, that it is a 60% off.
So it's
deal.
about knowing your retail prices.
It's knowing your retailer prices. And it's something you should do, is when you're walking around doing your grocery shopping, doing your TV shopping, compare your washing powders. So, something like washing powder can differ 20 Rand a bag. And there's no massive difference between the two.
All right, so let's ask you the question that we're asking our viewers. What do you have your eye on for this Black Friday? Or do you think that it is just a gimmick?
So for me, it's always books. I think an investment in knowledge is always important. So that is something that you invest in your kids' education. It's always important that you can do on Black Friday. But be careful of those impulse purchases.
All right, thank you very much for speaking to us. Ester Ochse is an economist and product head of money management at FNB. Aldrin.